Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be doing a massage for the lovely Michelle today, and we're going to be doing massage for upper back tension, and I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So the muscle that I am going to be focusing on today is the trap muscle, so the lower, mid, and upper trap. And I'm going to focus quite a bit on the upper trap. And I think I will go ahead and dive in with some oil. Sometimes I'll do compressions to start, but I think today I'm just gonna go in with some oil. And just little tips. If you're having a day where you're having trouble focusing or being present, like just so you can really give, your best to your client, sometimes I'll just rub my hands together, like with intention, take a few deep breaths, and breathe into my feet. And just kind of center myself a little bit before I start. So, often what happens, so when somebody has rounded shoulders, most of us do to some extent, it puts a lot of tension on the entire trap muscle, especially the upper trap. And so it's just really important to focus on the trap muscle if somebody complains of upper back pain or stiffness or like a base of the skull headache. The upper trap is probably the culprit. And it's really good if you can work this trap muscle from different directions. So to start, I'm just working on this more superficial tissue, and I'm not too worried about rushing in with a whole lot of pressure when I'm working on the upper trap especially. I would say if you're just learning massage, the upper trap is just a great place to kind of start, because it's a more superficial muscle, and it's like easy to find. It's just kind of fun to feel like you're being effective when you don't really know what you're doing. And the trap muscle is it's hard to go wrong, I guess, if you're just learning massage. So there's all kinds of ways that you can work this muscle fiber. So you can kind of work on stretching that muscle fiber a little bit more by moving the hands in opposite directions, kind of getting into that mid and lower trap a little bit too. And if you're intimidated if you're thinking like, I don't know where the mid and lower trap is, if you just fan your hand out and focus on moving diagonally down, you're going to be on that muscle. So the lower, mid, and upper trap, it's one muscle. So you can just kind of start working your way down. This is a really nice way to just work that muscle fiber, stretch out the connective tissue a little bit. And sometimes if massage is all about like being clear in your approach, like sometimes if I want to work on the connective tissue above the muscle, I'll just skip the oil and focus on a different approach. But I'm just kind of like secondhand working on the connective tissue as I focus on that muscle fiber a little more. I'm not using a whole lot of oil, so it's pretty easy to do a little bit of that myofascial work. And sometimes if you're working on someone who's really athletic, who's used to getting deep tissue, this can be, people get kind of impatient, but it's really important to work the soft tissue before you go in with that deeper approach. So again, just kind of offering some techniques that are like pretty fail proof, and if you want to learn how to give a good massage without making it too complicated, just a few little techniques that you can use. And I'm going to go ahead and transition into a nice soft fist. And another cool thing about doing this kind of trap work is you can really explore, and like it's all gonna feel good. So at one point in my massage practice, I would kind of use a soft fist and do more kneading work. I've kind of transitioned into using my elbow a lot more, so I do less of this, but this is a really nice way to do that cross fiber work. You just have to be careful. So the upper trap is going to get thinner as it goes into the neck here, so it's going to get harder to really work that upper trap. So you just got to be careful that you're not running into the scapula if you're using this technique. This is a really nice technique to use on the muscles that support the spine as well. Those are rector muscles. But again, this is one technique that, especially like the bigger, more muscular men that I work on, I don't really do a whole lot of soft tissue work, but I always do some. And even here, you need to be careful of not hurting the ribs at all, because you can kind of run into the ribs a little bit if you're not careful. And I would say just kind of explore working on that muscle tissue from different directions. You can kind of bring it into the shoulders a little bit. The one thing I would advise against is just going in with your thumbs like relentlessly when you're working on the upper trap, because you're going to get tired really fast. But at this point, I might do a little bit of thumb work, just depending on. So this is a high area of tension, just right here by the scapula. So you're always going to find some really good trigger points here. And if you only have 5 minutes to work on the upper trap, this is like where you want to be. So sometimes I'll just kind of, this is a really good place to work that muscle fiber and the connective points in here from different directions. And even, something as simple as just stacked thumbs, little circles. This, because this is such a high area of tension, especially if the shoulders are rounded, you can apply quite a bit of pressure, but definitely communicate with your client, your friend, whoever. And this massage is about them. It's not about impressing anybody or whatever. It's really about just helping someone feel better. So I don't use stacked thumbs a lot, but if I'm on my like 4th or 5th massage and I'm getting tired, I might use it a little more. And honestly, tap potement is a really underrated technique that I kind of forget about, but it's so good, especially in an area where there is a higher level of tension. It's so good for fresh blood flow. It's just very healing technique to use, and it's literally just tapping. So I try to find a rhythm. It's kind of like a giveaway that you're not present if you're not like keeping a good pace. So just try and find, a pace that you can stick with, focusing on that upper trap, those rhomboids a little bit, but really just encouraging that really taut upper trap to let go a little bit. So when their shoulders are rounded, it's pulling that upper trap, so it's very taut. And so really encouraging that muscle to relax. And sometimes if somebody's complaining about like a lot of tightness in the upper back or extreme pain, I'll start with the deltoids. I'll start with some arm work to just open everything up. And the infraspinatus usually gets really tight when the shoulders are rounded, and it can kind of hold the shoulders in a rounded position. So, but the upper trap is just a great place to start too, if you're working on someone with a lot of issues in the upper back. And I like to really work on that meatier portion of the upper trap before I go into the neck. So you are going to maybe have to concentrate a little bit harder because the upper trap gets thinner here. You might need to focus a little bit more. So just go ahead and drag my fingers up. And for some reason, I find doing Petrissage in the shoulder area and the neck a little bit awkward from this angle, but I'll sometimes do it if it feels right. And it also depends on like the body that I'm working on, but a really nice technique. Petrissage is definitely easier with the right amount of oil. So I'm going to go ahead and end with this technique actually. I'm going to grab a little more oil. And always treating applying oil as like part of the massage. You're not just rubbing on oil. You want it to feel nice and mixed in with everything you're doing. So right here I am working the upper trap. I'm working more superficially. And even with this Petrissage I'm going to work more superficially, but so I don't use this technique a whole lot, but this is a great fail-proof way to work on that upper trap into the neck. So just little circles, doing that kneading motion. I'm kind of getting this hair in a big mess, so I'm going to move that. All right. And so this is kind of a great place to start. And again, this is a technique that I don't use very often because I find it to be a little bit awkward of an angle for me, but it just depends on who I'm working on. So this is a really nice way to get into the levator scapula a little bit too. So I will usually end, once I have like a really good idea of what's going on with the upper trap and how it's positioned and how taut it is, I will focus on working through some of that really dense muscle fiber, and I might even get to the levator scapula. So once I get closer to the shoulders, I'm going to start. So if you want to work on the upper trap, think you're working towards the base of the skull. And if you want to kind of access that levator scap a little more, you're going to start pressing in. So you're going to have to get through the trap muscle. And sometimes if this area hasn't been worked on, there's going to be a lot of resistance. So you don't want to force anything. You want to work with your client or your friend. But sometimes I'll kind of go back and forth between working towards the neck, so I'm working on the upper trap, and then I'll kind of go in with my thumbs, depending on how things feel, start working into that levator scap a little bit more. It's really nice if you can hit both of those areas to really relieve some of that upper back tension. And that would be a really weird way to end. So I always try to do some effleurage, or something that feels really nice to finish. So even if it's just a few strokes, and I'm gonna go ahead, I ignored the lower part of that trap muscle, so I'm gonna go ahead and just give that area a little bit of love before I finish. And before I finish, I would like to thank a few of our patrons. I'd like to thank Peter H., Carol M., and Janaid A. Thank you all so much for your support. Janaid is a really cool name. I haven't even heard that name in a really long time. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and end there. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's video, you should check out our Patreon page where you'll find some really great exclusive content. I look forward to seeing you there.
Join us for 14 and 30-day programs, hour-long classes, and much more on our yoga app, Yoga Plus by Psyche Truth. It's free to download and features a variety of wellness content, including yoga, fitness, Pilates, guided meditations, and interviews with dozens of wellness experts.